The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So, while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Meemaw and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
Tom's friends, warning.
If it's not too late, the two friends I recommended listening to our show, don't listen to this one first.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 103 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, writer, actor, and director, Kyle, put your finger in. You can feel it fine.
Hello. I hope you're all having a great spooky October. All you Frankenweenies and Frankenhoo-has. Yes, let's talk about movies.
Second, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Tom, don't make me throw this hummus haggis.
That's like word for word what I was going to say, Kyle, so good job. Still my
Even
opening.
with the accent?
Yes, I was going to, yeah, let's go. All right.
I figured as much. Pipped you to the post, old chap.
Good job, well done.
Yes.
Good job. I'm going to keep going like this.
Third,
Yes, let's not stop till the end of the episode.
No, I don't think we should even let Mike introduce anyone else.
No,
We'll just do
let's
this
go
for
on
2 hours.
to our first order category.
All right.
Writing.
Best
Yes.
voices, I think we should do.
Ah, yes, that's the one. Yes.
I'm voting for you.
I vote for you. It's a tie. We both win.
What's up to the audience now?
Ah, yes. Hello.
third, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Inc. Studios, Andrew, I think I know what you know. I know. Zumwalt.
Hey, Igor, you need to go back to the tower. And the other Igor, you go back to the tower too, because damn!
That was awesome. That was
Igor.
awesome.
Both of you. Hell! Go suck on some weird frog things and go. Go make Edward.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel, I think that statue just pissed at us. Rowald.
I see dead puppets.
Very nice, Gabe. Very nice. What happened to Igor and Igor? Are they still on?
Igor and
I don't know. Should we all do voices?
Oh my God. If you guys do voices through the whole show, it would be fantastic.
No one would listen.
I want to be Al Gore.
Al
You invented the internet. Yes.
Okay, Al, we know. You should have won.
It's
Got
a
it.
series of tubes. Yes.
So I'll be the monster of Frankenstein. There
There we go.
Well, that's pretty good. Yes, he sounded like that, yes.
All right, I'm going to poke the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen,
go toe-to-toe in the fright of their lives. Who will end up in the graveyard for good? And who will scare us a victory? In the first corner from 2012, written by John August and directed by Tim Burton, starring Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, Martin Short, and Charlie Tahan. Frankenweenie! In the second corner, also from 2012, written by Chris Butler and directed by Chris Butler and Sam Fell, starring Leslie Mann, Jeff Garland, Anna Kendrick, and Cody Smith McPhee. ParaNorman!
All right, well, I can honestly say I have not seen either one of these films until recently. I want to find out what you guys think. So let's move on to our first round, which is writing.
Yes, I had never seen any of these movies either. I can't do this the whole show. Kill my voice.
You just lost my vote. I can't vote for you.
It's okay. You still have my vote. You're Al Gore. I voted for you, I think. Was I too young to vote for you? I don't know. I can't remember now.
You.
So I had never seen these movies before. I knew very little about these movies before this month's episode. And it was telling to me after I watched Frankenweenie that I was like, God, that movie felt like it was missing so much. Like it just felt really stretched. It felt like they were padding a lot. And then I found out it was a short film that they stretched into a longer film based on a Tim Burton idea from the 80s. And I think that really shows in the writing because there are large chunks of that movie where not a whole lot happens. It's fairly repetitive and boring in parts. And I think the ending is really slapped together. Like they didn't know what they were doing till the end of the movie. And they're like, oh, we're going to have a monster movie. So I don't have a ton of great things to say about Frankenweenie. ParaNorman, on the other hand, I thought was, of course, it's not the most original idea to have, a kid or someone who sees ghosts, but I thought it was really well executed and was a much better thought out and plotted movie, even though the ending is a little bit like there are some zombies and a witch. It works together in the story, and I liked it a lot more. It felt much more like a planned out full-length movie. A lot more beats. The characters and dialogue were a lot more in-depth and relatable, and I enjoyed them quite a bit more than I did with Frankenweenie. There are also some characters in Frankenweenie that are basically just caricatures. They don't have any depth to them at all, which I suppose we could talk a little bit about in acting, but there's only so much you can give performance you can get out of someone who's just one-note characters. I mean, the neighbor is an asshole. That's it. That's all he has. Winona Ryder is weird and quiet. That's it. That's all. I mean, there's nothing else to them. You get quite a bit more filled out, especially about Norman in ParaNorman, and I like a lot of the side characters. I think it's very charming and creative, and I just enjoyed the characters in the story much more in that movie.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
I felt like ParaNorman was well written overall, but I felt like the climax, the ending of the film, left a little bit to be desired. They didn't. I don't think they really clearly got across their point. I kind of understood what they were trying to do, but I don't think they got it across clearly because, they took this little girl who had been basically murdered for being suspected as a witch, and then Norman is basically saying, "Oh, don't be this way. Don't be." Basically, I felt like they kind of turned it around and made the victim kind of the bad guy, and to a certain degree. And I don't think they very clearly got across the idea is like, don't be like these evil people who killed you as a child. She became kind of the villain, and I didn't think that was appropriate. And I also wasn't quite sure why we were forgiving of these, zombie executioners. Basically, I don't think they really went far enough to show why we should forgive them. And I got the concept, but I felt like it fell a little short at that point. But up till then, I really enjoyed it, and the characters were very, enjoyable and interesting. And but I just felt like in the climax, it just kind of fell apart a little bit and didn't really complete the story satisfactorily. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
of the ending?
I kind of agree too. I think I felt like the Frankenweenie ending was a little bit better. I just like ParaNorman. I felt you got kind of trying to like figure out like where's the story going, and it just I don't know. The kind of it like the pacing of it got to the point where I felt like halfway through it that we were getting close to the end. And then I kind of peek at the time and like, oh God, this thing's only half over. And then it just kind of plateaus for a bit. And it's just like, it's crazy with zombies and everything else. Whereas Frankenweenie, on the other hand, I thought it built really, really nicely and started real. It grabbed that kind of that inertia of a horror film where one thing is off and then something else is off and then things start to spiral out of control. And I thought all of the ways that they worked in like the universal monsters, I mean, they're all in. There's so many little nods and, elbow, what do they call it? Little nudges that, to all of the movies. And it's such a rewarding experience, I think, watching Frankenweenie with all the stuff in there. And then I like both movies very, very much. But I think Frankenweenie wins this one by just a hair.
I think with Frankenweenie, my problem with the writing is the title. Because the dog's name is Sparky, and he's not a wiener dog. So why Frankenweenie? I didn't quite get that. That's my only problem. Not my only problem. There's other problems with the writing. I'm kind of being facetious, but it's like why did they go with Frankenweenie and he's not even like really a wiener dog?
Well, that's in the director's cut. Did you watch the director's cut?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I watched whatever was on Amazon.
There's a scene where the dog's penis falls off. Did you see that scene? That's why they call it Frankenweenie.
Oh, I did not see
I need someone to laugh because that was a joke.
I did not see that.
Sorry,
scene.
I was muted.
Wow, you guys took that very seriously.
Yeah, I was muted.
I thought. I
mean, his butthole fell out at least twice, so I don't.
That is true.
Know.
That's true. I would not be surprised if a penis fell off in a director's cut.
Yeah.
So that wasn't so much of a joke. No, but I did feel like why is it called Frankenweenie? Because he's not like a wiener dog, and his name is Sparky, and why Frankenweenie? I don't know.
It's just a funny title.
It is kind of, and I also felt like they stopped a little short of showing why what was different about raising Sparky from the dead from all of the other creatures that got raised from the dead, because there's this part in the middle that they really he's talking to the teacher who gets fired. And it's one of those scenes where it's like, okay, this is like too much telling me what's happening and not enough showing me what's happening. Because he basically like tells you like, the reason that Sparky is still around is because of love, because of the love that you shared with it. And,
that's not how science works. Da 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 da.
Yeah, but then at the end of the movie, I felt like it left us a little short because they're trying to revive Sparky at the end, and he's hugging Sparky, and you're waiting for the tears to drop on him and to, like as some sort of visual indication of the love that he feels for Sparky, and that's what brings him back, because that's the only thing that matters. But that, that doesn't
you
really
talk-
happen.
You talked
And I
about
felt like it was
ParaNorman having some issues with the messaging in the movie. I think Frankenweenie has huge problems with what message it's trying to get across, because when it's giving us the science speech, it then takes a sharp left turn into love is what you need to make a science experiment work, which is crazy and stupid. And then also at the end of the movie, whereas he should have learned to love and let him go, instead they go, nope, well, parents are stupid. Let's bring your dead dog back to life one more time. So
Right.
what's the lesson here? That you should never let anything go. Just keep resurrecting things for your own selfish needs because you're too sad to mourn your dog. I think it's a terrible message. I thought ParaNorman, although it was a bit muddled at the end, the message that if someone does something bad to you, you shouldn't punish them forever or lower yourself to be mean or evil just because something bad was done to you. I think that's a much more positive and clear message in the end of ParaNorman than the message they give us in Frankenweenie.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and I would say my biggest comparison with the writing with these two is I felt that ParaNorman was definitely directed more to a funny or younger age, with some of the jokes and some of the gags that they pulled out through. And this may just be the director-wise, whereas Frankenweenie I thought was kind of geared a little bit more towards an older audience, with just some of the little, like you said before, the elbow nudges of like the monsters, the real life film that was being shown in the process. It just seemed very. It seemed maybe for an older audience as well. It doesn't attest to the discussion that we're having about the ending. I mean, Frankenweenie was obviously based off of Frankenstein, and so has a lot of, I guess, threads through that. Especially, I mean, at the end, they're all with pitchforks and torches and stuff, which was just, I don't know. I almost thought was really, I mean, they set the whole thing on fire and the little boys in there. I mean, what kind of town is this? But ParaNorman, they actually find themselves, and there's all these kind of kitty gags, even like at the very end. I think it's his sister, Anna Kendrick's character. She's been hitting on the jock the whole time, and he's like, "My boyfriend's really gonna like you," and it's like, okay. So it just that was the two really big things I pulled out of them, was just that the difference in ages I think that they were written for. But I've seen this movie so many times and I enjoy them both, so it's just kind of like
Well, and I think any good children's animated feature caters a little bit to adults, because they know that adults are going to be forced to go sit through this.
Yeah.
So we may as well throw in a little bit of something for them.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to go watch. And I think both of them do a pretty good job of that. I actually read some interesting reviews of ParaNorman where they actually complained a little bit that they thought some of the humor was a little bit too adult.
Really?
Yeah, there's some language and stuff in there. There was a couple times where I was just kind of like, I let my kids watch this. I don't remember that. But I don't know. I thought it was. I mean, it's fine for my kids. I know some people would probably think that it was a little bit over the top. So
Tim Burton just normally writes for a more adulter crowd, and I think if you've seen the actual short, it's definitely a little more older in that writing, but.
Yeah, was the short? I've never seen the short. Was it intended for adults, or was it actually a like kind of a kids type film?
It's not quite as kiddie as the actual movie is.
Mm.
It's a little more serious and on the Frankenstein kind of feel.
Mm.
You should watch it if you haven't seen it, because it's actually really interesting to see, because Tim Burton is. From what I've read, he basically did it himself, and it was kind of one of his stop motion that he did. And it's it's interesting to see the differences in what they can do now and compared to what he was able to do, and how amazing both are in that sense.
Right. Well, and I do feel like Frankenweenie really kind of got to an emotional core when it comes to your pets and dogs in particular. And I think we've watched some movies recently that have featured dogs, and the emotional impact that can have on people, especially people like me who are, dog owners. And that's one thing that I think that I felt very emotionally kind of involved with the film, because the fact that it dealt with a beloved pet, and it made me think about like what would I do if I could bring like one of my pets back after it died? What would I do? Would I do that? Would I want to do that? And that kind of thing. So I think it really hits a strong emotional core with the whole pet thing. But,
so first of all, I want to say thank you for that, Mr. Wick.
Yeah, exactly. John Wick is one of those. What was the Kevin Costner one that we just watched?
Waterworld?
No.
Dogs.
Open
dog.
range.
Where they killed the dog, and I
Range.
wanted Open Range. Yeah, that has a huge emotional impact on somebody who owns a dog.
And then, I mean, this is a pretty common. We just talked about this tonight, but I mean, it's a common theme especially with pets. I mean, Pet Cemetery.
Sometimes dead is better.
Anyways,
All right. Let's put it to a vote, fellas. Kyle.
ParaNorman.
Tom.
Frankenweenie.
Gabe.
Well, I think ParaNorman has some problems at the end, but I like it better overall. So ParaNorman for me.
And Andrew.
I'm also going with Frankenweenie.
All right.
Oh, split right down the middle.
Yeah.
Just like Frankenweenie.
All right. Well,
or the dog in ParaNorman.
My
There's
Halloween.
that little dog in
the cut in half.
It's okay.
Yes.
It's his own butt.
You don't get to talk, Mike.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
I was just going to say my Halloween treat for you guys is I'm not going to do trivia because I ran out of time and I don't have any.
All right.
So we can move on to our second round, which is acting.
One of the fun things about Tim Burton is that he kind of has a theater troupe that he likes to pull from. And I started watching Frankenweenie, and I had forgotten that for a little bit. I was like, but then you start to see all of those Tim Burton archetypes characters, and you're like, oh, there's the Winona Ryder character who's doing the voice. Oh, Winona Ryder, got it. Okay. And there's the Catherine O'Hara character, and she's doing that one too. So it's just it's fun to see him put them in there, and the way they're able to tell these very, I don't want to say similar stories, but he obviously, he has his themes that he likes to hit on a lot in his movies. I think I'd like Tim Burton's movies a little bit more if there was this like some kind of thread that kind of wove all the stories together. But I mean, it is what he does, and he does it really well. I don't think anybody does his style of like children's scary movies. Nobody does things better than I think Tim Burton when it comes to that. On the other hand, ParaNorman is I think the second film from Leica Studios, and I'm a huge fan of their stuff. I thought Coraline scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. That was or not when I was young. When I was a kid, what was I? I think I was 30 when it came out. But it was creepy, and they've come a really far way. I haven't seen the latest one, Missing Link, but Kubo and the Two Strings is one of my favorite animated movies, and they're always doing really great stuff. But the acting in ParaNorman, they don't have the benefit like Tim Burton does, where he calls up his friends and get them in to do this thing. And because of that, their cast is not quite as famous as the cast in Frankenweenie, but I feel like the performances are a lot better in ParaNorman than they are in Frankenweenie. The humor is a little bit more dry, and it just runs a little bit more in the kind of line that I like out of these kinds of movies. My favorite voice actor out of both movies is Casey Affleck as Mitch. I thought he was absolutely hysterical. Like every time he opened his mouth, it was so funny, and definitely like my favorite character from all of them. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I found the performances in ParaNorman to be overall really good, and I also found that I was, and I don't know, maybe it's Tim Burton's style. I felt like a lot of the performances in Frankenweenie were a little bit stilted, a little bit kind of dry, but maybe that was intentional. But I did find myself enjoying the performances a lot more in ParaNorman. I found myself laughing more, and I felt like it was a little bit more nuanced. And we'll get into this probably later, but also like in terms of animation and that kind of thing, I felt like the performances were a little bit more nuanced in ParaNorman. But I don't know. I mean, Tim Burton really has his style, and he has great actors in there. I just felt like maybe he was limiting them a little bit in their performances. They seemed a little bit dry in some cases.
I thought they were very dry and really flat and kind of one note in Frankenweenie, and that was one of my problems I had with the characters overall, and I think they're acted that way as well. I agree with you. ParaNorman has a lot more going for it in subtlety, and I think, although the casts for both movies are good, I enjoy the performance much better in ParaNorman.
But I would argue that also that's kind of, like you said, Tim Burton's style, because I mean, think of some of his other films that are even live action from, stop motion stuff. A lot of his characters are your stereotypical characters. They are the same, the grumpy neighbor is just the grumpy neighbor. And I mean, you can even look at Beetlejuice and you can pick out that, the mom is the crazy lady that is just over eccentric about art. And I mean, she's really two-dimensional. But he is trying to pose into, I think his characters, the ones that you care about are the ones that actually you follow, and the ones that actually have somewhat of a story to them. So I mean, I guess I chalk that up to that kind of his style. I will agree that ParaNorman, though, and maybe it was just the actual dialogue, but was actually quite more humorous, and it was a lot lighter and giddier, and maybe that just attests to the people that were performing those, at the same time. So I don't know. It's kind of a draw, because I mean, I kind of expect, it's kind of like watching a Wes Anderson film. I know what I'm getting into when I watch a Tim Burton movie. I know what kind of characters they're going to be. There, you see the scary guy with the weird mustache. He's the science teacher. Oh yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. It's an expectation, I think.
Did anyone else think that the grumpy mayor looked like Rod Steiger?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But I was surprised that was Martin Short, though, playing that voice as well.
Yeah.
Because I could tell as the dad, I could tell that it was Martin Short. I knew that it was Martin Short. But as that other character, I didn't know that right away. But I have to say the voice performances. Oh well, I'll save that for later. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm stopping. But yeah, I enjoyed the performances in both, but I did feel like I felt like the characters in Frankenweenie were really kind of like, I don't know, they weren't allowed to bloom. They weren't allowed to. They were all very kind of stilted.
Well, we've run into this before where actors, I mean, they need some direction and they need to kind of have an idea of what the final, what the goal is in this. And I feel like the cast in Frankenweenie should have had a head start because of who they were working with, and they know the actor, the director, and they probably had seen the short film, and they kind of had an idea of what was happening. And so I guess that's kind of why it's surprising that they kind of felt so flat. But but I mean, the people in ParaNorman weren't, super amazing either. Both casts kind of just try to stay out of the way of the story, it seems like. And I'll tell you, I love Jeff Garlin. I think he's fantastic, and I love him on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he was great in WALL-E. But it did get to the point where I was just like, I think he needs to take a couple of years off from voice work, because it was just like when I heard his voice as the dad, it was like, oh my God, he is in everything.
Yeah, and I liked John Goodman.
Yeah,
as the crazy old uncle or whatever. I liked him because I wasn't quite sure at first. I'm like, it sounded like a couple of people to me at first. I'm like, I think that's John Goodman, and then but I like that because he wasn't immediately recognizable as himself. But I thought his performance was fun, and I feel like those actors got a little bit more leeway as far as kind of like letting go and kind of going almost over the top with it and kind of having fun with it.
Yeah.
I do want to say that I thought that was it Charlie Tahan, who's the voice of Victor Frankenstein, and then versus like actually Cody, who did Norman. I felt that Norman or Cody was a much, I don't know, felt more kid-like and had a more innocence to him, but relatable character-wise, I relate more to Victor for making movies. And that kind of stuff that he does, I mean, that's what I was doing as a kid, just stupid, crazy movies. Now, I know that wasn't a big part of the actual story. It was just a little background about who he was, and he was the oddball or whatever. But I did at least relate to that. I would hope that everyone else chimes in and says, "Sure, I did too." That was.
Do you think that was Tim Burton? It kind of like expressing himself as a character in that.
Maybe so.
I can see that.
Yeah, definitely.
Woo!
Where's Mike?
I'm right here. I was just making sure you guys were done. Are you done?
We're done.
All right. Let's put it to a vote. Tom?
I'm going to go ParaNorman on this one.
All right. Gabe?
Yep, ParaNorman for me too.
Kyle? Or Andrew, sorry.
That's all right. I would definitely, I mean, I have to say in this one, ParaNorman as well.
All right. Kyle?
Make it a clean sweep.
Wow. All right.
I do want to correct one thing I said earlier. This movie I remember that Tim Burton did, one of his very first ones, was actually Vincent, was actually the stop motion that I was thinking of, because Frankenweenie was actually also done by Disney and done by Tim Burton, and it is actually live action.
Wait, what?
The original, the
original
short. The short
all
right.
Is
Tim live Burton action.
Is live action. It is not. That's not the one I was thinking of.
Oh, my brain just really, like, I heard a audible pop in my head. I was
Did I just blow your brain?
Probably have that looked at.
Yeah, nah, it's all right. It's okay. What are we doing again?
There's your trivia, Mike. I'm helping you out.
Thank you.
Shelley Duvall is in it.
Oh, Popeye.
And Sofia Coppola.
Oh, all right.
There you go. There's your trivia, I guess.
Thank you.
So there's my correction.
Thank you for being self-correcting.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our third round, which is directing.
I think when we're talking about Tim Burton, we're talking about a very distinct, very unique style. And even though this was a stop motion animation film, you could very, very much see Tim Burton's style in it. Just how the characters looked was very reminiscent of early things like Beetlejuice and that kind of thing. I feel like Tim Burton's style is very strong and very unique, and there's nobody else that does anything like it. And so, it's hard to compare any other film to that. I mean, when you have such a strong style, it's like, how does anything else really compare? I think the direction in ParaNorman was very strong. I think it did well, except again, it's always hard to tell, where writing and direction overlap. But I think that the climactic part of ParaNorman fell a little flat, and I think maybe direction could have helped that a little bit, having a clearer vision of what we're trying to say here. Now, one thing we haven't talked about these two that is a directorial choice, in my opinion, is the choice to do Frankenweenie in black and white. So what do you guys think about the choice to do it in black and white?
Jeez, I didn't notice. Thanks.
Well, we haven't talked about it yet.
I thought it was a good choice. I think we occasionally need the kind of mainstream movies to go black and white. Just people have this weird aversion to it. Like if it's not color, it's not worth seeing. And they roll their eyes and like, oh, it's a black and white movie. And so I like every now and then for a little populist movie to come out that's black and white and just kind of reminds people that it doesn't really have to be in color.
Well, and it also portrays a little bit of the original Frankenstein's as well. Because the original Frankenstein was, it's in black and white, and that's just because of when it was. I guess, it's interesting because I agree. I think that Tim Burton has a style, and it's hard to really go up against, but I guess I look at the impressiveness of, even when you're doing stop motion, there is direction that is happening. And in both of these movies, I'm so impressed at the fact that they are still following traditional directorial styles of, the 180s and the close-ups and the, doing Dutch angles, and actually, the way they're not trying to do zooms, they're actually making it feel like they're trucking in instead. And that to me is so impressive when you're not actually doing this live, you're doing this one frame at a time. And so I feel that both films, they definitely had a mindset of, I'm shooting a live movie at the same time that I'm not shooting a live movie. And that, I think, because stop motion, I've done one stop motion movie in my entire life. There's a reason. It sucks. It's hard, and it's not easy to come up with the shots that you would normally do if you were live action. And so I at least appreciate that, yes, they have different styles, but they still follow traditional, what you would consider traditional directing and cinematography in a very difficult setting. Even if you plan the shots out, it's just really fascinating to me that much forethought goes into a lot of that frame by frame, and to pull that off is quite remarkable. In that aspect, it's really hard. It's really hard to pull the two differences apart. Now, if you look at just Tim Burton and his style, his style is, I expect it. I know what I'm going into. I know what the people are going to look like. I know how they're going to feel. ParaNorman is definitely brighter. It has a lot more, I wouldn't say fantasy, but magic and swoopiness, and it's a much brighter and almost cheerier, I guess would say, whereas Frankenweenie gets you into that dark grittiness that Tim Burton is so famous for. Even in his live action, he has a lot of dark themes, real kind of grittiness to a lot of his stuff that accompanies his soft side in the film at the same time. I mean, you look at stuff like Edward Scissorhand, where, you know, that movie is just bizarre and out there and over there, and then you have the one scene where he dances with her in the snow. Well, it's the ice flakes that he's made, and it's just this soft, beautiful moment. And I see similar things in the Frankenweenie. You have your moments where he's soft and tender with his dog, and you can tell that there is that love there. But the rest, it's still a dark themed and very gritty when it comes to it. ParaNorman is just, it's a fun Halloweenish kind of, no pun intended, Halloweenish type movie that, you know, has zombies and witches and this boy that can do cool stuff that everyone thinks is weird and odd, and it hits home with your stories for kids that potentially are going through similar problems like that. Okay, that was my rant.
So I think when you do an animated movie, for better or worse, your direction gets judged a little more harshly because in idea, if not in practice, you have an unlimited amount of attempts to get things right. You craft it the way you want, and it's only based on your ability to direct it and get it produced and put on the screen. And so for me, that's what I found kind of disappointing about Frankenweenie a little bit, was I actually found the style of the movie, I didn't like it. I didn't think it looked, I mean, obviously it's a great feat to put it together. But I just didn't care for the overall look of it. I thought it was kind of dull. That's just my opinion. I like black and white movies too, but I thought ParaNorman was much more colorful. In my opinion, it was better animated. It had a better style to it. But that's just, like I said, that's just my opinion. And it's probably not a particularly popular one. But I just overall found it much more enjoyable to watch ParaNorman. And I liked the trajectory of it and the way it was put together more.
But I guess I would ask that you elaborate a little bit when you say that there's an unlimited amount of being able to get it right. Because I mean, when you're talking stop motion, it totally, I mean, an animated film, like if we were talking about something that was completely CG, I would 100% agree, because you could render that 1,000 times as long as you have the time and the money, right? This, when you're doing stop motion, though, you definitely have an issue where you could take 1,000 pictures, get, you know, your 1 minute done for the day, and go back and be like, holy crap, this isn't quite right, but we don't have time. We've already done this and that to the puppets or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if it would be, if that's more difficult. So I don't know. I don't know if unlimited is as fair with stop motion.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe these guys have way more money.
I guess what I mean by that is your design of the characters is not limited to you being able to find an actor to portray that or the right costume, etc. You can continue to refine it, change it, dial in on it until it's like exactly your vision.
Yes.
So so when you put that on the screen, to me, I don't know what it is, but it's always been like, okay, so this was precisely your vision, or as close as you could get to it with your time and your limitations.
Yeah, they designed the actors basically, and the costumes, and the makeup,
right,
and everything.
That's what I mean by that.
Okay.
I can't imagine. I have to imagine it takes so much patience and work to create these stop motion films. I don't know how people have the capacity for it. Filming something live action is difficult enough. Yeah. And when you tell me you have to create it by manipulating it in small bits and parts over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of individual movements, that is just, it hurts my brain to think that that's the way people make art. It's so meticulous. And I think it's beautiful when it's done. And I think part of that is the mastery and the craftsmanship of it, because you subconsciously or even consciously realize, like, holy shit, this took a lot of work. This is not point a camera at someone beautiful and they say a line, cut, we're done. That took 10 minutes. Not that it's easy, but like, oh my God, the amount of time and effort it must take to just craft a small amount of your film it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, and then matching up to make sure that you have dialogue, the mouth movement works.
Yeah.
So way when they do the ADR later, it's right.
It's just nuts.
Yeah.
Well, it does make you question a director's judgment if they choose to do stop motion animation type.
How crazy are they? Is what you're
I know. It is a bit insane, but it also makes you realize how much they've planned out in advance. Because I think, like what Andrew was saying, I don't know. I've never really done it on any large scale, but my assumption is you don't go back and redo a lot of things. You don't go back and say, okay, redo that scene. A lot of times when you're doing a big Hollywood picture, they'll do reshoots. We need something. It didn't screen well. We need some shot to tie this together or whatever. They'll bring everybody back together. They'll go out and do a reshoot. I can't imagine there's a lot of that going on with stop motion animation.
Especially when you're talking one scene of the movie is probably weeks of work.
Yeah.
Because one day is seconds that they've recorded.
About 4.5.
There you go.
I read a thing about ParaNorman, and the average each day for each animator was about 4.5 seconds.
Oh, that's insane.
And now I do know. Maybe we need to get into We'll get into overall. We'll talk about technique, but.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, from a directorial standpoint, you have to be a little bit crazy or masochistic or something to take on a project like that. But you do also have to really be detail oriented and plan it out in advance, because like you were saying, they have all the same kinds of shots that we expect from a live action film.
Yeah.
There's the established shot, and then there's the close-ups, and then there's the, you're going back and forth over the shoulder for conversations, and you're doing all the same kinds of shots. But you don't have the luxury of seeing it immediately and going, okay, let's do that again. And you have that all planned out in advance, and it's really quite impressive.
And you don't feel like you're on a miniature puppet set.
No.
Like these sets
never
are so
really
elaborate that you just don't. Yeah.
And unless you really take yourself out of the enjoyment of the film.
Sure.
No, you don't really ever feel that.
If I'm going to give, I like Frankenweenie on a lot of different fronts more than ParaNorman, but I do think the stop motion animation work in Frankenweenie is superior to the stuff in ParaNorman. And obviously Tim Burton has been doing it for years. He did it in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, 30 years ago, whereas in ParaNorman, this was their second movie. And they have gotten so much better at it. If you look at the footage from Missing Link and Kubo and the Two Strings, it's stunning how fast and how far they've come in 5 movies. And it's funny because I've seen Kubo about 12 times, and I go back and I watch ParaNorman, and it almost takes me out of it how not smooth the stop motion is and how good they've become with it. And Tim Burton, like I said, he's been doing it forever, so his stuff just looks better. So
he's had a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't. This is probably something that we should get into in overall, but I'm not sure. I know exactly how they did the animation in Frankenweenie, because there's a lot of information about how they did the stuff for ParaNorman and in their like as other movies. With the 3D printing and the replacement animation or whatever they call it, it seems to me that Frankenweenie is a little bit more traditional from an animation standpoint, in that it's more of a, for lack of a better term, like a clay. Like they actually manipulate the face on the puppet itself, but. I don't know. We can get into that in the next category, I guess. But I'd be interested in knowing more about that, because they're very different looking styles.
All right. You guys ready to head into overall?
After we vote.
Well, yeah, of course, but I'm just making sure you guys are done.
Aw, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you got it. Gabe.
I'm going to go with Frankenweenie on this one. Tim Burton's style is very distinct.
Andrew.
I'm also going to go with Frankenweenie on this one.
All right. Kyle.
I'm going to vote for ParaNorman.
And Tom.
Yeah, I got to go with Frankenweenie. It's just really good directing.
All righty. Let's move on to our fourth and final round. Overall.
A lot of what we said earlier, just with the styles and the age groups and the directors and everything else kind of all fits into kind of a big, huge package of how these films came out. I think one of our biggest focuses has been how and what they did to actually produce some of these films. And I guess that is where I look at these as being some of the most enjoyable films. And it's not just these two. There's a lot of different, mostly from Tim Burton, but a lot of different stop motion films that are like this, that are just, they are so fun to watch. And at the same time, you look at them and you're just like, this is absolutely incredible that they, you know, are sculpting these characters. They are moving them micro centimeters, you know, and they're getting it all together, and then they throw it all together and hope it works, and then they record audio. And it's just really fascinating. For both movies, I enjoy them. I've seen them both multiple times, so I guess perhaps I'm the odd man out. For most people, you guys all said that this was your first time, or at least two of you. But I've seen these movies so many times. Enjoy them both. I don't know. It's hard to really talk about more without repeating what we've talked about for the overview. The only one that I can say that I could probably answer for you, Gabe, is that I know that Tim Burton, with all of his stuff, they sculpt all of their characters, and they have thousands of them in different poses and different situations, and they use lots of different ones, but they are manipulating the mouth, the ears, the legs, clothing, wind, all that stuff is all done by hand. I'm assuming that ParaNorman is the same. I do notice a lot differences in, like we said with Frankenweenie, how a lot of the characters and a lot of the style is it's flat, but I think that is the style that he was going for. Comparatively, you look at ParaNorman and there are reflections in their eyes, and it almost seems like their eye actually has water in it, like a real eye. And I just think that that's more of an animation style for what he wanted to do. Again, a brighter film versus, but I don't know. Overall, I like them both. They're damn good, fun movies to watch. I'll watch them again.
Now, here's a question I'm gonna pose to you guys. All right, because I've been thinking about it since you've been talking about the styles of animation. Would it be safe to say that Frankenweenie is more of a stop motion, where ParaNorman is more of the? You remember we discussed it during Jurassic Park versus Jaws, where they were wanting to animate the dinosaurs with something called go motion. You remember that? Would ParaNorman and what that company, what they do is more of a go motion style than a stop motion?
I think Leica is pretty much stop motion. I mean, I think they're the I think that's like the best example of stop motion that's out there right now. I mean,
it's a different style of stop motion. It's just called go motion.
Right.
Yeah, it's a weird hybrid with Leica.
Yeah.
One of the things I found pretty amazing is, they do what they call replacement animation, and they're using 3D printers to print all of these facial expressions for these characters, and they basically obviously just mostly for the faces and for the mouth movements, they're producing all of this stuff with a printer and then replacing that for each, frame or whatever. Now, I think they're doing actual stop motion when it comes to the character's movements and the environment, where, if the character's walking or if there's something, in the environment that's moving. I think they do more stop motion, but it's kind of weird because I think they also kind of rely heavily on post-production type stuff. There's some visual effects involved as well. There's a lot of green screen involved. There's a lot of, especially for some of the background stuff. And if a character is suspended in some way or another, there's a rig that is taken out of the scene. They're a real mix. And I saw one of the special features where they're doing the 3D printing of all the faces, and they have computer models of the faces that they use to do the 3D printing. I'm like, well, you're already doing it in a computer. Why are you going through the massive trouble of doing the stop motion to create these characters when you already have it modeled in a computer and you can just do it like everybody else is doing it nowadays and probably save a lot of time and money? And, granted, I mean, the look of it is unique and amazing. And when you think about it, it's like, wow, that is really an incredible accomplishment. But why are you doing it? Why? You have to be kind of masochistic. You have to kind of hate yourself to want to do it this way. It's so time consuming. And why do you do it?
And they also note that when they do these, now I don't know about ParaNorman, but I know that Tim Burton does this. I would assume ParaNorman follows a similar workflow, but they have multiple sets, different scenes, all being shot at the exact same time. So they have multiple copies of all the characters.
Yeah, sure.
So it's not just, they go in and shoot 4.5 seconds and that's it. Like 4.5 seconds in that.
Oh no! Actually, they have handfuls of
30
animators doing working all simultaneously. But even think about it. If you had 10 animators that averaged 5 seconds, you're still under a minute a day.
Yeah, and Tim Burton's crew, I've watched them, especially when it came to oh my goodness. The Nightmare Before Christmas, when he's doing faces and such. I mean, there's people actually in there with tools, and they're manually adjusting the cheeks and the chin, and I mean, they're moving. These are physical puppets per se. It's not claymation, but I mean, they are doing physical manipulation of how the eyebrows move, how the mouth is, how the lips, and all that. So that is a little bit different than it sounds like the way ParaNorman was actually produced.
Okay, so I just answered my own question. Go motion was technique originally developed for the film Empire Strikes Back and used for some of the shots of the Tauntauns, and was later used in films like Dragon Slayer, and is quite different from traditional stop motion. The model is essentially a rod puppet. The rods are attached to motors, which are linked to a computer that can record the movement as the model is traditionally animated. When enough movement has been made, the model is reset to its original position, the camera rolls, and the model is moved across the table. Because the model is moved during shots, motion blur is created. Variation of the go motion was used in E.T. to partially animate the children on their bicycles.
Sure.
And today, the mechanical method of achieving motion blur using go motion is rarely used, as it is more complicated, slow, and labor-intensive than computer-generated effects. However, the motion blurring technique still has potential in real stop-motion movies where the puppet's motions are supposed to be somewhat realistic.
Well, and so, there was definitely computers involved in ParaNorman. I mean, besides the printing, I mean, like the auras of the zombies, the witch. I mean, all that had to have been done post.
Yeah, like the clouds that have the witch's face.
Yeah, I mean
that I don't think that was, stop motion overall. Anyway. Well, and then the interesting thing is they did that thing what they refer to as replacement animation. So they have a whole bunch of faces printed, like 3D printed faces for each of these characters that they swap out over time. And it's interesting because the puppet itself, you have to take the face off and put another one on. Well, there's like a line. Like the eyes were on the puppet, but the rest of the face was basically like the lower half of the face was replaceable. So there's a line about kind of at the nose, just under the eyes. Well, they had to cover that. They had to fill that in. So while there's a large portion of it that's stop motion, they also rely really heavily on CG. Because they had to use CG to smooth that out. There's no other way. Because if you look at the pictures of the puppets, I mean, there's like this clear line across the puppet's face, which you don't see in the final movie. And so it's a really interesting hybrid approach.
Well,
and it's stunning. The results are stunning. When you know how they did it, you're just amazed. But it also makes me wonder, like, why do you do it? What? Why? Why do we do it? Why do we still do stop motion? Anybody?
I mean, there's monks that do the sand painting that take forever to do that, and there's, people that
it's therapeutic for the animators.
They make mosaics out of little pieces of glass. I mean, people. I know there's
an art. It really is an art.
I think the best thing would be it's like pointillism in painted art, that you just it's all these little tiny pieces to come together and make something, and the fact that they can do it and create emotion out of it, and connect with the audience on a level
the
like
illusion of life, and yeah.
But I guess
it is amazing.
I could return that question back to you. Why do you still make movies? I mean, yes, it's not stop motion, and yes, you're not spending 60 plus hours doing 1 minute of footage, but think of all the painstaking work that goes into it, and costumes and planning and shooting and mess ups and editing and sound. I mean, why do you do that? I mean, so some people who have never made a movie, they look at that and go, why would you do that? Like, that just seems like a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. And it is, and it's something to do with the storytelling,
right?
And it's a really the stop motion stuff is a really amazing way to tell these stories. It's really I'm fascinated with it. I think it's amazing what they can do. Yeah. But I also wonder, there are options to do it cheaper and faster and easier. And it makes me wonder why they choose to do it some other way.
Why? Because you stand out, right? It stands out. Why try and compete with Pixar or DreamWorks, right? I mean, they kind of have.
They have the power to
do
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They've got that in the bag.
Okay.
And it's a style choice, right? Like, why would you choose to do a comedy and shoot it in black and white? Well, because it's what you want to do.
Well, and I'll take it one more step back there, Mike. Look at the technical aspect. Why do people still shoot on film? We all know that digital is way easier, way faster. I can do 1,000 takes, and it means nothing to me. But yet people still shoot on film.
Yeah. Nope.
And they still develop it. They still hand edit. I mean, there are people that are very pure when it comes to making a film. Why would you even bother? That seems like a lot of work.
Right.
Well,
it does an expense.
But I mean, isn't there an aesthetic to it though? Isn't there a look that you get?
Yes, that is it.
Sure.
Yep. You hit it on the nose.
Now, I think that applies in this case. I think that applies to Frankenweenie, because to me, Frankenweenie appears to be more traditional stop motion than ParaNorman does. ParaNorman is is beautiful and amazing, but it seems to me that it's like, well, where do you draw the line between stop motion and CG? Because there's clearly a heavy reliance on computer intervention here.
Yeah, it's just a tool. It's just a tool to modify the way they're making their art. They just choose to use it more heavily than someone who might want to do something completely in stop motion.
Right.
Well, and I think it's interesting also that both these films were released in the same year, which would roughly mean they probably started animating, because they're roughly the same length. They're both about an hour and a half long. So it would seem that most probably started animating roughly about the same time, depending on a lot of other things. But it's interesting that there are very noticeable differences in the technology and the style that was used. It's not like Frankenweenie was done 5 years before ParaNorman, so computer technology wasn't there to do it. He made that actual choice, whereas ParaNorman, they were like, hey, we're going into this and we know that we can do X, Y, and Z to make this better. We'll fix it in post kind of attitude, knowing they can get a specific style when they do those additions and stuff. So it would appear that they went in hands down going, yes, this is how we're going to do it. At least I would make that assumption based on when they were both being done.
Well, it might be too that with such a specific skill set as doing stop motion, there probably are not a limitless option of houses, puppeteers, animators you can go to. I'm sure you have choices, but when you pick one or you find someone who gives you the aesthetic you like, you're kind of trusting them to do it in their style, and they may be more reliant on computers than someone who does a more traditional style, etc. So you might, there might be some of that's just what they're comfortable with and what they work best with too. Well, because some of that's sort of out of your hands, unless Tim Burton is doing the modeling and the motion himself, he has to rely on the animators and what their skill sets are, how they like to work.
I also find it interesting that Frankenweenie was only 39 million, whereas ParaNorman was 60 million.
Yeah, that's surprising.
I feel like there is a lot more going on in the background. Maybe it's just more populated in ParaNorman. Sure. It's much more stark, and I think that's by design in Frankenweenie, with the black and white, and it's not as populated. There probably takes a lot more to fill out those scenes and get all that motion and all that extra stuff, Well,
I was going to the point of, was it also a technology? If they're 3D printing all these faces and then they have to go back and do CG work and stuff, that all adds up.
Oh yeah, that costs money for sure.
And so, maybe it was a Tim Burton choice because this is cheaper. I mean,
totally possible. And I don't know that if you animated Frankenweenie in the same style as ParaNorman, it has the same effect that you're trying to reach.
Sure.
Because it's obviously such a throwback to old monster movies and like a love letter to those kinds of things. And so many of those are in black and white, and they have such a similar aesthetic. And I mean, obviously, I think that's clearly a choice. Tim Burton, with his cachet, could choose any animation house to do whatever he wanted and probably have no problem with it, So yeah, he chose that and went with it, and he definitely has a style to it, and everything is in service to that style. Like, all the choices feel like it's in service to that style.
Yeah, you pulled that right out of my head. That was one of the last thing I was really going to mention with overall was that Frankenweenie is definitely in the style of the Frankenstein story, the Frankenstein feel, and then he throws in all of the traditional, adult, because like you see the turtle, for instance, and that Godzilla. I mean, you're making connections almost immediately. Yeah. And he did that on purpose, obviously, but doing that throwback for the adults watching it and keeping that black and white, that old monster movie feel. You pulled that right out of my head there, Kyle. Thanks. That's kind of creepy.
I agree with what Tom said. I hope artists keep choosing black and white. There's a new movie coming out called The Lighthouse.
Oh, Yes.
And
So
I love the look of that movie. I love that choice.
That movie looks fantastic.
Amazing. Yes.
It's directed by the same guy who did, dang it, someone help me out. I completely forgot now. The Witch.
Yeah.
Who did The Witch, which was a horror movie in 2015, 2016. So, yeah, man, I love that choice. I think black and white looks great. I love old black and white movies. I think it looks, with what they can do with it now, with the clarity you can achieve, and I think it looks phenomenal. The way they do black and white now. I mean, yeah, it's great. I hope that people keep making those choices, like artistic choices. I love that when it's in service to a style and a tone for a movie. I think it's great.
Yep.
So the biggest question is did they shoot it in black and white, or did they shoot color and then?
How do they shoot
I don't
black and
know
white these days?
Because
do they just shoot? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're still shooting on film, like a handful of directors still are, but I would guess that many of them are shooting digitally. And do they shoot? They just shoot color and desaturate, or how do they do it?
Well, there are, not to get too far off topic, but Red, who is very popular for a lot of big motion pictures, they actually make a brain for Red that only shoots black and white. And it is a special sensor specifically made just to make sure that your tones and your gradients and stuff, because there is a difference in shooting in color and converting it to black and white. Because your tones and stuff are not the same as when you shoot directly to black and white.
I just read on Wikipedia, the editor of the movie revealed the film was shot on black and white 35 millimeter film.
Wow.
Damn it. I just read that too.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, but and that goes back to the style thing. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why would anybody painstakingly do that?
Yeah.
When you know about the director of that, the director of that movie, though, who made The Witch, which is an incredibly period accurate 17th century horror film where they all talk in dense 17th century dialect, and everything was built using the same techniques. The outfits are period accurate, all that stuff. Like, that is such an attention to detail that he's going to go, all right, it's got to be 35 millimeter black and white. I'm not doing digital and desaturating it or anything like that. Just make that choice and it goes towards the tone of the film.
What's even more fascinating is the Lighthouse movie that's coming out is mixed actually in monaural. The sound mix is mono.
I misunderstood you. Yeah, I misunderstood you.
Yeah. The sound mix is monaural, so there's no stereo. It's not surround sound. It's just like mono.
No.
All right.
Interesting.
So sorry, off topic.
Let's get back on the topic real quick. Do you guys have anything else you want to add to overall? Anyone?
I enjoyed both movies and they're fun.
All right. Let's put it to a vote. Andrew.
I'm gonna go with Frankenweenie because I love Tim Burton.
All right, Kyle.
I'm gonna go with ParaNorman.
Tom.
I'm going with Frankenweenie because it's the better movie.
Gabe.
Well, like Andrew, I enjoyed both. They're both entertaining, but I think I'm gonna go with ParaNorman.
Dude.
Oh!
Come on.
All right.
This is in everything, you guys.
Well, while I tally the votes, let's go ahead and listen to your recommendations for this month. We'll start it off with Kyle.
Okay, I'm going to vamp for just a minute because I'm looking up the movie, the year this movie came out. So I saw a classic movie for the first time in my life last week, and I saw it on the big screen in the theaters, and it was Bride of Frankenstein from 1935. I saw it in a one-room theater in Winterset, Iowa called the Iowa Theater.
Yeah.
So I saw it there. It was the first time I ever saw that movie before in my life. And what blew me away was realizing it was made in 1935 and the way the sets looked and the way they created the backdrops and everything about that must, all done on a studio stage, but to do that in that time period with these huge cameras, it visually blew me away to see it. And it's another black and white movie, and I really enjoyed the aesthetic. It's more of I don't think I've ever seen the original Frankenstein. I don't know, this is the follow-up to that movie, but it kind of recaps the original movie in the first 10 minutes. You get the gist of what happened in Frankenstein. But it's a treat. The acting is a little bit all over the place. You have some 1930s acting. But it's only an hour. It's only an hour and 15 minutes. And it's really kind of a comedy. Frankenstein learns to love alcohol and cigarettes and music. It's kind of strange. He like befriends a blind man in the woods. But man, it was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed seeing those old movies up on the big screen. So if you get a chance, you haven't seen it, it's only an hour and 15 minutes. And it's just look at it and realize how old it is, how difficult it must have been to make, how insanely detailed some of the backdrops and the set pieces are, and all the craftsmanship that went into that. And I think it's a really fun watch, especially because we're, in October.
Well, and, Young Frankenstein was kind of a mix of Frankenstein and The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And also in black and white.
Yeah, also in black and white. What made you go, Kyle?
Yeah, it was one of those things that a friend invited me to it, and I was like, I have never seen this movie, and it was really interesting to me that it was being shown in this old restored theater. Mm-hmm. And if you guys haven't been to the Iowa, it's like the smallest theater I can imagine. It's one room. It looks like a schoolhouse. It's so crazy, but it's really neat. It's very old. It has an old marquee out front with like the lights. It was kind of a foggy night. It was really like a perfect atmosphere to see it. I think that really enhanced it as well.
Very cool. All right. Thanks, Kyle. Tom.
So I'm not doing an animated movie or Halloween movie. I'm getting totally away from it. But I'm going to recommend Danny Boyle's new movie, Yesterday. I saw it recently, and I really, really loved it. Of course I did, because I love everything Danny does. But it's so on the surface, if you've seen the trailer, it's about this. There's a blackout, and there's one guy, a musician, who knows all the Beatles, knows that the Beatles existed and no one else does. And then he's challenged with how does he deal with that information, and does he take advantage of it? And it was, on the surface, yes, it seems like a very cutesy fantasy, musical kind of adventure. But one of the two things stuck with me though after watching it, and that's what I always try to look for in a movie, is a movie that's gonna follow me around the next day. One is the absolute just breadth and width of the Beatles catalog, and how absolutely amazing and how much work they did in 7 years, the music that they put out, and making the world a better place. Secondly, just who does music belong to, and from an extension of that, who does art belong to? Who does these movies belong to? And once they're put out into the world, do they really belong to the artist anymore? And so that's one of the themes of the movie that I really enjoyed. So I would definitely take it out. It's really well done. All of the acting in it is superb, and the direction is top notch, as you would expect from Mr. Boyle.
It's very, very good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I loved it. I don't know if it's my favorite movie of the year, but it's definitely up there.
I wanted to see it, and is it out on
Redbox?
Redbox. All right, awesome.
Redbox has got it.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. Gabe. Yep.
Well, I'm going to go.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Have a good night, guys.
That never gets old.
No, it does. I'm going to go with a traditional stop motion type film. I'm going to stick with our theme this evening, and I'm going to go with Wallace and Gromit: The Wrong Trousers.
Ooh.
Have you guys ever seen it?
Yeah, that's a good one.
No.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. And it is really like traditional stop motion. I mean, they're basically like clay.
Yeah, it's like claymation, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so you think about the amount of effort that goes into that is just incredible. And I've always been amazed with how the subtleties that they can get across that way. The main, well, like one of the main characters in The Wrong Trousers is this penguin who's trying to steal these mechanical like pants, basically, and the penguin never talks, and so everything relies on the penguin's like gestures, and he just makes all these really subtle gestures that convey so much, and it's amazing to think that was done with basically clay. And those guys, I think they have graduated since then to doing CG type stuff that looks like their claymation, but their claymation work is just fascinating. It's just fantastic work. So, and it's a short film. So if you ever get a chance, check out Wallace and Gromit, any of them.
Yeah.
But one of my favorites is The Wrong Trousers.
All right. Thanks, Gabe. And I mean that. Andrew.
Thanks.
I am not going to do a stop motion, but I am going to stick with the Halloween theme, just because it's a little Halloweeny, I guess. Ha ha.
Put that away.
Dun, 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 dun.
Little Frankenweenie.
I gave you the dun 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 dun.
Sorry, Mike. That fell flat. Go ahead and play me out.
Bam, stretch.
Okay, so my recommendation is new this year. It is a small, I guess you could consider it independent. It was shot on the other side of the world, over in the Svedens. It is a very broken mind twist of a movie. You watch it and it's just, you're through the whole thing, you're like, what is happening? And it completely is, it was quite the movie to sit through. And that's Midsommar. And that's Midsommar, Midsommar. And it's about a group of guys, and one of them brings his girlfriend, and they go on a trip to Sweden, and they visit this, let's call it a community, and they celebrate the summer solstice. And this boy that they met at college grew up in this community and is bringing them to show them their celebration. And it's something else. So it's the same director that did Heredity, and it's a brain messer upper. We'll just say that. Great for this time of year, so highly recommended. It's a good flick. Midsommar.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.
None of you guys have heard of that, have you?
No.
I have.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, it just seemed like you guys were like, huh.
No,
I have not.
I want to see it.
It's very good, but just prepare yourself.
Oh, I loved Hereditary.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm interested in this for sure.
All right. Well, I'm not going Halloween. I am going stop motion. All right. I'm going to take you back to a magical time of 1981. And I want to talk about the master of stop motion, Ray Harryhausen. And he did all the visual effects, all the stop motion for this movie. It stars Laurence Olivier, Harry Hamlin, and Claire Bloom. Mm-hmm. It's Clash of the Titans, the original one.
Yeah.
And I could have picked Jason and the Argonauts, but I thought we had talked about that on one episode, like a lot in depth, but I'm not 100% sure. But I loved Clash of the Titans as a kid, and every once in a while when I catch it on TV, I still watch it. Harry Hamlin is so dreamy, but the effects work that Harryhausen used or did in the film, it still blows me away, right? Like you're talking about, he's at the peak of being who he is. And yeah, now what, 30 years plus, it still somewhat holds up. Like Kyle was saying, you start to appreciate what they did back then.
Yeah.
And it's crazy what he accomplished. And so you need to check out the original Clash of the Titans.
Rubber.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I loved that. I loved those movies when I was a kid, and that stop motion stuff was the coolest stuff.
Oh, it was great.
I mean, if you go back and look at it now, it seems pretty dated. It doesn't, but man, it was the coolest stuff. He's fighting those skeletons. Oh, the skeleton part is the coolest
Medusa.
thing.
Oh my God, Medusa used to send me in under the kitchen table. Like when Medusa hit the screen, I was gone.
Right.
And the stop motion snakes that she had in her hair.
Yes.
Oh.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where you look at the artistry of it and you realize, like, wow, that's a lot of work, and they really did a cool job with it. And
his mechanical
you really appreciate it.
Yeah. The mechanical owl.
Oh yeah.
It's all stop motion.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
A lot of cool stuff.
Let's poke the monkey, find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is ParaNorman!
Bullshit.
No, I was going to say it's close. It was close.
One round where everybody voted.
Are you proud of yourself, Gabe?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Wrong movie one.
Frankly.
Tom's going to start a campaign.
Really
it's going to be called
movies.
Not My Movie. And
so I'm sorry, listeners, but Tim Burton's movie is awesome. So Tim Burton, if you're listening, I'm sorry that everyone is wrong. I still love you.
You actually ran upstairs to get some candy corn. I'll let him know when he gets back down here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're hanging out with Tim Burton?
He's not crying, is he?
What else is he gonna do? We're working on Beetlejuice.
Is Helena Bonham Carter there too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking. Just curious. I don't question that.
All right.
All the cool people hang out at Tom's place.
Where could people find you? And well, I don't know. Maybe put a witch's curse on you. We'll start with Andrew.
Oh, Nikes. No. Okay. Easiest thing. Go out to Arizona Ink Studios. That's Arizona INK Studios.com. And check out all of our short films. And we've got competition stuff. We've got non-competition stuff. It's all up there. We've got Super Bowl commercials. And then, of course, all of our wonderful social media that we are on that we are not as, I guess, fluent as some of the kids these days with everything, but you can definitely follow us, especially when we're making a movie, which we will not be recording probably before then. So just let everybody know that we do have the worldwide 4 Points film competition that Arizona Ink Studios will be a part of. We'll be making a movie with the rest of the world in one weekend, and it is a blast and crazy and paceful, and it's just blah, 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 blah. So be looking forward to a new film plopping out very soon.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Gabe?
So, Andrew, you're doing the 4 Points, huh?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Well, good luck. That's crazy, but good luck with that.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, you can find our films on onegenomeshort.com.
All right. And I should apologize to Andrew. I only heard the start of your talk as I had to go give a goodnight kiss to someone. So, Tom.
You could have just texted me.
I'm in my car. I'm heading up there right now, Tom.
He's on his way.
Next time, use a little tongue, Mike.
You're making HBC jealous. Yeah, people find me on Facebook and Vimeo, and that's about it, I think, right now. So generally, you guys can find me on Tim Burton's couch, passing out tricks but not treats. So
Oh my.
yeah,
You really love Tim Burton.
I really do. I'm actually just using him to get to Danny Boyle.
That's
Don't
a
tell
weird
You're
roundabout
sleeping
way.
your way up the director ladder.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, I'll take Tim Burton when you're done.
Oh, we're passing around Tim Burton's now.
You get a Tim Burton, and you get a Tim Burton. Oh, mine says Tom Burton. It's the dollar.
Get
It's
his
the dollar.
non-union Mexican equivalent.
Yeah, it's the dollar store Tim Burton. Tom Burton.
Tim Burton.
I was going to say it'd be Tom Burton.
Kyle.
Well, that reminds me of a time I bought a lot of knockoff stuff at a flea market in Denver, and I was wearing PB shirts, and I thought they were FUBU shirts, and Tom, just Tommy, no Hilfiger, and the colors on the flag were different. Yeah, I didn't notice that forever. Don't buy things at flea markets, kids. They might be knocked off. Anyways. I signed up for my third Twitter account today in honor of these movies. You can find me at Frankenweenie, and you can follow that, and you can follow me at Jerksitter and Tyrannosaurus Sex. And I mean, once I get all of these under my brand, Jerksitter.
Jerksitter?
Jerksitter. Oh, so there's Choke Jerkin, but that was just sort of a more personal. Jerksitter is like where I offer my business goods. If you want to try autoerotic asphyxiation, but you don't want to die for it, I will sit there with you and make sure the belt comes off at Jerksitter. Just letting you know. Tyrannosaurus Sex is a bit of a mix of the two. I do promote my Jerksitter there, but it's also kind of a meme page. And then now Frankenweenie is just all going to be my amateur porn. So I'm trying to get that up and going. I want to be a cam girl in 2020. So I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to get lip fillers, and you're going to be able to just see it all. You can see everything, all of it, for just a little bit of money.
Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, I've seen everything. And I will tell you, once you come to at Frankenweenie, there are things you can't unsee.
Is it all like stop motion?
There's a lot of stopping, but that's
It's only because he has dial-up.
Short of breath. There's a lot of reasons to stop. Mom's knocking on the door, stuff like that.
All right.
So in that sense, yes, it is stop motion.
Okay, I see.
Depends on your internet connection, Gabe.
That is true. If you're on a 56K, if you're, BODs, that's what we call them now in the modern parlance. You're going to have a hard time even seeing it because there's just so few pixels.
Pun intended.
Pun definitely intended with my tiny wiener.
All right. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. You can check out the films on YouTube. Just search Southsider Studios. And we, this podcast, The Royal We, would appreciate if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. You can contact us at cinesmack@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmack. For November, it's a whodunit with the who's who of Hollywood. It's Clue versus Murder by Death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was going to be good.
So for Kyle, Tom, Andrew, Gabe, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
I don't want to start anything, but you can leave your monarchist royal we shit somewhere else. My grandpa fought the British for this country, and not going to let you besmirch his name with your royal we. If you want to do the metric system, you go do it somewhere in Canada. I ain't got time for your bullshit.
If it's not too late, the two friends I recommended listening to our show, don't listen to this one first.
Oh, it's probably too late.
Well, don't say it.
Ask Mike to put that at the beginning. Have him edit that to the beginning. So that
Tom would like to put out a disclaimer.
Warning.
The disclaimer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tom's friends, warning.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So, while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Meemaw and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.